The floor of the Nigerian exchange has opened for the day. The exchange in London opened an hour ago. New York exchange is yet to open, while in China, exchanges opened 2 a.m. locals. The markets closed yesterday on opening bell, as well as news from around the region on the Eastern Business Report. But first, the Afia News updates.
Hello and welcome to the news update. I'm Joan Odiniwo.
We'll begin the news update in Enugu, where the state governor has called on the federal government to rectify the contradiction between the National Inland Waterways Authority Act and the Minerals and Mining Act, which creates limitations in harnessing the solid minerals within the state. In a separate development, President Bola Tinubu has received Queen Mary Elizabeth of Denmark at the State House Abuja and called for deeper bilateral cooperation between Nigeria and Denmark. Meanwhile, the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, has said his administration reduced the state's debt profile by 60% from the 259 billion naira in 2020 to 99 billion naira. On the foreign scene, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has said he had no doubt in the United States is committed to the Alliance Article 5 Mutual Defense Clause. And finally, in the update, Nigerians men and women's flag football team received a hero's welcome on their return to the country after emerging champions at the 2025 African Flag Football Championship held in Egypt.
And that's the what you have on the news update. Do also look on our social media platforms at Afia TV Official. I'm Joan Odiniwo. Many thanks for watching.
DSTV 17 on GoTV, and of course 48 on Free TV, live from Coal City, of course, Enugu. My name is Nnamdi Obanya. The NGX ended yesterday on a high, and so did the exchanges in London, China, and the US. Plus, Peter Obi thinks Nigeria is a lawless country and the courts are impeding investment and business. Do we agree with him? You'll find out over the next half hour, because opening bell starts right now. This is opening bell on the Afia Business Morning. The Nigerian Stock Exchange closed on a high yesterday, but it's, well, more highs in London, China, and the US. We'll be looking at how the markets ended, as well as our commodity reports. But first, let's take some news stories. Beginning with news from the securities market, where the average yield on federal government bonds fell in the secondary market as investors sought to fill lost bids at the main auction, with trading activities in the secondary market influenced by huge lost bids at the primary market auction conducted by the Debt Management Office at the beginning of the week. Local bond yields have been in decline as the market caught a low supply signal from the Debt Office, reflected in its second quarter circular, as investors who were unsuccessful demanded for newly issued Naira assets via secondary market transactions. However, appetite remained cautious given the relatively unattractive coupon, with the bond now trading roughly 30 basis points below the auction close, with fixed income market analysts reporting that yields across the mid-curve dipped by 12 basis points as they realigned with the auction stop rates, with the average yield declining to 18.44%. Staying with the securities market, and the Debt Management Office has slashed the rates on Nigerian bonds maturing in April 2029 at the primary market auction, buoyed by excess demand from investors seeking to take positions in the Naira assets. The agency floated 100 billion Naira in bonds for subscription across reopening and a fresh issue of 50 billion Naira each, with the authority allotment matching this total offer, but reduced the rate on the 5-year bond that was reopened. Details from the auction showed that aggregate demand was 6 times more, with total subscriptions settling at 602.855 billion Naira as against the 100 billion Naira offered, allowing the authority to hike spot rates on both reopened and new issues. And finally, from the currency market, where the naira fell against the US dollar to 1,549 naira, according to data from the Central Bank of Nigeria foreign exchange platform, with the local currency experiencing mild demand shock amidst FX intervention slowdown, with transactions consummating between 1,547 naira and 50 kobo and 1,550 naira and 50 kobo per dollar, before closing at 1,549 naira and 3 kobo. Despite pumping $86.6 million into the forex market last week, there were additional inflows from foreign portfolio investors, exporters, and non-bank corporates, as the Nigerian forex market has appeared to be relatively dry in the last 2 days, causing the exchange rate to bump for 2 consecutive days in a row. US dollar inflow into the currency market settled at $1.03 billion last week, and most of the inflows were brought forward by for 67. Okay, let's dive straight onto the floors of our featured exchanges, starting on the floor of Nigeria Stock Exchange, where the NGX All-Share Index yesterday closed on a high, rising by 1.0%, a gain of 1,211.17 points, to close at 119,790.82 points, a total of 868,679,752 shares, valued at 23,708,640,974 naira and 94 kobo, were traded across 22,207 deals, with equity capitalization of 75,576,218,817,093 naira and 60 kobo only. Biggest gainers of the day were Dangote Sugar, Okomu Oil, UPDC, and Better Glass, which all rose by 10%, with Champion being the other gainer. On the other hand, Dow Communications topped the losers list with a decline of 7.81%, while other losers were Prestige, IMG, Nigerian Police Microfinance Bank, and Aradel. Straight to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, where it's all rises in index values across board. NYC Composite is up by 1.05%, US 100 Index up by 1%, Dow Jones Industrial Average up by 1.19%, S&P 500 Index up by 1.11%. It's also a 1.41% rise for the FANG and TM Index. For tech stocks, NASDAQ Composite up by 1.43%, and the NASDAQ 100 is up by 1.53%. And onto the floor of the London Stock Exchange, where again it's all rises. The FTSE 100 up marginally though by 0.01%, FTSE 250 up by 0.97%, FTSE 350 up by 0.13%, and the FTSE All-Share Index is up by 0.14%. Now moving to China and onto the floor of the Shenzhen Exchange. Unlike the US and London, it's all rises. The Shenzhen Component Index is up by 1.68%, SZSC Composite Index is up by 1.79%, and the Chinex is up by 2.3%. Staying in China, but this time onto the floor of the Shanghai Exchange, and again it's even more rises. The SSE Composite is up by 1.15%, SSE 50 up by 1.16, Star 50 up by 1.179, SSE 180 up by 1.02, SSE 380 up by 1.33, and the CSI 300 Index up by 1.2%. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at our commodity prices, as well as our consumer price watch in the open market, and checking whether or not Peter Obi is right about Nigeria being a lawless country and about the courts impeding investment and business in the country. Opening bell, we'll be right back. I'm Nnamdi Obanya, and you're welcome back to Opening Bell on the Afia Business Morning. Of course, it's showing on Afia TV, channel 254 on DSTV, 17 on Go TV, 748 on Free TV, and streaming live on Afia Business on YouTube. Now it's time to check in on our commodity prices, and we begin with our precious metals. And it's downward movement for gold. Gold has dipped by 0.08%, and it's trading at $3,321.58 per troy ounce. Palladium down by 0.85%. Platinum up, I beg your pardon, by 0.85%. Platinum up by 0.88%. Silver up by 0.06%. It's trading at $35.94 per troy ounce. Moving on to energy prices, natural gas is down by 0.14%. Coal also down by 0.39%. Brent crude continuing the downward trajectory of energy prices. It's down by a whopping 4.01%, trading under $70, trading at $67.82 per barrel. Of course, Bonny Light, we've had no action for 11 months. Brass River and Kwa Ibo down. Brass River down, whopping 12.2%. It's down from almost touching $80 per barrel to now being at $69.73 per barrel. That's about $6 less than the $75 per barrel benchmark set in the national budget. Kwa Ibo down by 12.19%. It's down to $69.78 per barrel. Industrial metal prices, aluminum is down by 0.11%, lead is up by 1.14%, copper is down by 1.04%, nickel is up by 0.95%, zinc is up by 1.56%, and tin is up by 0.04%. All right, we'll take a look at our commodity prices in the open market now. We've been seeing fluctuations in the price of food, some ups and downs. But well, the new hikes in the price of fuel still taking some getting adjusted to marginal hikes, but 15 naira on a litre is a lot of money, particularly here in the region. But looking at food prices first, and a bag of rice still going for about 94,000 in Enugu on the average, anything from 80 to 110,000 in the southeast. Lagos, you can get on the average of 65,000. However, you can get as high as 80,000. Local rice getting as high as 100,000, though there are some that are much cheaper. 4-litre basin averaging 10,000. Enugu more expensive. Of course, 4-litre basin is the popular one painter. Beans prices, one bag going for about 65,000 naira on the average, depending on which beans you're buying. The 4-litre basin going for about 6,000. Lagos marginally cheaper on retail. Gari prices now, and anywhere from 80 to 90,000, with places like Enugu having higher prices. The 4-litre basin, which recently the painter of Gari had dropped to about 2,005, we're seeing it creep up again. It's back to its trusted 3,500 naira average. Some places inching towards as high as 5,000 naira. Yam prices still steady, anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 naira for the large tuber people like to call the Benue yam. Though worries about insecurity in the state and availability of the product make people fear that maybe we might be seeing a rise in prices very soon. Plantain prices of full bunch going anywhere from 6,000 to 12,000 naira. We're looking at Enugu being one of the higher and more expensive places, just like Lagos. Of course, urban centers more expensive than rural centers. And for those wondering, saying they are buying their plantains as high as 18,000, 20,000, yes, those are the very large bunches. We've seen traders in recent times reduce the size of what we call the large bunch so that it can be affordable at 12,000 naira. Inflation not just affecting prices, but affecting the quantity we get for prices. So we now have a medium-large bunch. Of course, we'll have a special commodity report on the Eastern Business Report later, so you don't want to miss that. But we'll go on one final break. And when we come back, Peter Obi says Nigeria is a lawless country, and that is why business is difficult in the country. Do you agree? Find out when Opening Bell returns. You're still on to the Afia Business Morning, and you're welcome back to Opening Bell on Afia Channel 254 DSTV, and of course, Go TV Channel 17. I'm Nnamdi Obanya. Now, the judiciary is always called the last hope of the common man. It's supposed to be an equalizer to prevent social, economic, religious, ethnic, and governmental tyranny. It is supposed to be where the social contract that holds Nigeria together is enshrined and justice is served. So if a prominent person, ex-governor, presidential candidate, and billionaire businessman like Mr. Peter Obi thinks Nigeria is lawless and it is killing businesses, should we be alarmed? Or is he just upset? Let's get into it. Now, just yesterday, former Anambra State Governor and presidential candidate for the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, accused Nigeria of being a lawless country and insisted that this is a major issue affecting the economy. So why did former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, describe Nigeria as a lawless country? Well, his comments came following the alleged illegal demolition of his younger brother's company property in Ikeja in Lagos State. He went straight to his official Facebook page yesterday, where he made a statement where he decried the increasing disregard for rule of law and civil rights in the country, warning that Nigeria's deteriorating human rights indicators and weak institutional protection could deter both local and foreign investments. But let me quote him: "Any society where lawlessness overrides the rule of law is not destined to be a haven for investors. Recent reports showing that Nigerian human rights indicators have worsened merely highlight shortfalls in government protection for civil liberties, personal security, and basic living standards." Now, he also recounts the story of how events unfolded, saying that he was alerted yesterday morning by his younger brother, just that he was known indoors, commenced the demolition of the old property in Ikeja, and that they were reportedly denying him access to the building using security men on site, and they told him that demolition had already started over the weekend. Again, let me in his own words, what he said to Lagos from Abuja after the call this morning, and headed straight to the property. On arrival, I was met by security people who tried to bar me from entering. I pleaded with them, explaining the property belonged to my brother's company, and he had been in his possession for over a decade. So what really made him angry was that when he requested to see the legal backing for the demolition, the security personnel claimed a court judgment existed. But here's the kicker: where it was reportedly issued to an unknown person and squatters with no identifiable defendant or name served. Sorry? Of course, Mr. Business questions were valid. How do you sue an unknown person? How does a court issue a judgment in such, as he called it, farce of a case? No one was served, no name was written, yet they showed up with excavators and began destroying a structure that has stood for over 15 years. He further explained that he tried to speak to the contractors or authorities behind the demolition, but was met with silence and confusion, and stood there from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. waiting for someone to call. Nobody did. Contractor even said he didn't know who sent him. Now, Mr. Obi called it a coordinated display of impunity, and if events are as said, I agree with him 100%. He then reflected on a recent conversation he says he had with a businessman who operates across West Africa but refuses to invest in Nigeria, who told him plainly, Nigeria is a lawless country. Until we have laws that protect people, nobody will invest in Nigeria. Then again, Mr. Obi also questioned the direction of the country is heading, saying, and I quote, "What kind of country are we trying to build when the rights of citizens, their lives, their properties, and their voices are trampled upon daily?" Now, you might say his annoyance is because of his personal situation, but is it really? You might say he may not understand the issues at hand, but let us not forget that he knows the system better than you and I. He has been a two-term governor. He has won election tribunals and overturned impeachment, so he knows the courts. He knows a bit about the law, how the law works in the country. So now think about it. If a billionaire who has been doing business since Nigeria was under military rule, who has been a beneficiary of the courts, now says the country is lawless, you should probably pay attention. All of us to a certain degree can sympathize. The police say they are your friend, but their actions on the road say otherwise. Extortion, lethargic investigations, and sometimes even complicity with the highest bidder has robbed society of confidence in the police. The courts are no better. Eternal adjournments, perpetual injunctions, have made getting legal soccer too expensive for the common man. And with nepotism, sectarian interests, and corruption creeping into the hallowed chambers, justice is no longer blind and now has friends and family. Then you look at the election tribunals, all the way to the Supreme Court, where technicalities were used to throw out credible petitions from cases where candidates who did not participate in primaries were given slots because of filing preferences, to evidence thrown out wholesale on a whim due to time. How does one trust the judiciary? Who would bring billions into an environment where anyone with proximity to those in power can just hijack their funds, investment, and property without any consequence? Who wants to waste capital fighting spurious court cases designed to be used as legal weapons to disrupt competition? Even here in the media, businesses use courts to gag, intimidate, and frustrate operations. From expensive court filings to constant injunctions, the courts have become weapons of the wealthy and well-connected. And trust me, I'm not giving second-hand experience. I cannot even give too many details because it's actually a going concern here right now in Afia. Nigerian government can make all the fancy policies, visit all the world leaders, but if our legal system is not seen to have fidelity, integrity, and independence, then they are wasting their time because nobody will come. The questions around the legitimacy and integrity of the judiciary will eventually lead to local international investor fear, and Nigerians will prefer to take their funds abroad, and you won't blame them. People will begin to give up on the country. Thankfully, though, Mr. Peter Obi says he is not one of those people because, despite the ordeal, he still reaffirmed his vision for a new Nigeria where lawlessness will be a thing of the past, protection of life and property, respect for human rights, care for the less privileged, and basic education for all children. Something every country should have. Now, I also am not ready to give up on my country. I only have one passport. And for the record, I too have spoken to people who refuse to invest in Nigeria because they feel the law will not protect them. And I know people with this similar experience who have had people tell them the same thing. And that is so, so sad. And I'll leave it at that. We'll go on a quick break as opening bell is done, but the business morning continues. Don't forget that opening bell will return tomorrow when the exchanges reopen for trading. You can also watch episodes of the Obanya monologue on your YouTube page. Go to Afia TV official on YouTube and enjoy. When we come back on Afia Business Morning, Afia Sports Desk Head CCA Mechebe will be on set and we'll be talking sports business part 2, continuing from yesterday, and we'll be talking about football development in the Southeast and South-South regions. Afia Business Morning, we'll be right back. Like I said, it's Sports Business Part 2, looking at football development in the Southeast and South-South regions. And of course, the expert, Afia Sports Desk Head CC Ebechebe, will be here with us. But first, some regional news beginning in Abia, where traders at Area International Market in Abia State have established a 24-man ethics and quality control task force to prevent the influx of fake, substandard and expired products into the market. This was disclosed yesterday by the chairman, Area International Market, Mr. Michael Anyoji, who also said the task force is to protect customers and consumers from substandard and deceptive practices, and would incorporate officials of the National Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, and the Standard Organization of Nigeria, SON. He also assured that if any customer returns a product bought after the order, the seller can no longer say that he or she cannot replace it because the buyer has paid for it, adding that any trader who does that will be made to, quote, pay through the nose. The market chairman further added that the task force will scrutinize all food items and drugs being brought into the market to ensure that the fake and expired products do not find their way into the market. And I think that's fantastic from the area market traders. Self-regulation, self-control, and actually by themselves inviting NAFDAC and SON to come with them to handle this. We saw what happened at Bridgehead Market in Onyia, when NAFDAC actually sealed off the market, and even a lot of innocent people were affected. But we're seeing a situation where the market has taken the initiative, bringing on NAFDAC and SON. And I would like to now implore, beg the government agencies, now that the hand has been extended by the market to come in and work and do your job, you yourself need to regulate your own people and make sure there's no extortion, like we saw the woman who had jeans and shoes carted away by NAFDAC officials from her shop. We don't know what they have to do with drugs. But coming straight to Enugu, where Governor Peter Mbah of Enugu State has called for a complete policy shift in Nigeria's mining sector to allow states to take charge of the solid minerals within their soil. He made his position known yesterday while receiving members of the Senate Committee on Solid Minerals, led by its chairman, Senator Ekong Samson, during a courtesy visit to the Lion Building Enugu as part of their nationwide oversight mission to meet with key players in the mining sector. Governor Mbah further added that despite being naturally endowed with a blend of solid minerals, Enugu, like many other states, is unable to unlock its wealth due to several legislative barriers. And I mean, he's been saying this for a long time, but I know that Governor Peter Mbah is interested in expanding the value chain in Enugu State. I think a lot of governors want to do that. I think a lot more things should be removed from the executive and put on the concurrent, particularly in the South-South, because I think a lot of the militancy and all that, if the people had more control over the resources, even how the environment is destroyed, there will be control over so many things. States can now raise money and send to the federal, instead of the federal having to delegate where it's going to pay attention to, or maybe lots of money taken from the state and the state not seeing anything in return. Of course, then you have resentment and you will have all sorts of militancy and insurgents. But we move straight to Bayelsa, where we learned that residents of the Okolobiri community and other settlements in the Igbari and Ekpetiama kingdoms of in Yenogwa local government area, Bayelsa State, have raised the alarm over purported toxic fumes and vibrations in their homes, allegedly triggered by gas flaring from the Igbari and Ubie integrated oil and gas processing plant. They also said it was causing the people respiratory problems, skin conditions, and other ailments, which have become widespread, further claiming that for years they have been plagued by strange vibrations and loud noises of gas flares from the plant, a facility that was until recently operated by Shell Petroleum Development Company before it completely divested its onshore facilities and was replaced by Renaissance Africa Energy. Residents added that the death ratio has snowballed, crops and fish affected, walls are cracking and roofs are damaged, and faulted the relevant monitoring agencies, including the National Oil Spill Detection and Regulation Agency and the National Environmental Standards and Regulation Enforcement Agency, for failing to monitor the companies responsible for the flaring. Gas flaring has been happening forever in the Niger Delta and oil-producing states. I don't know why till today we are not tapping this gas and using it to boost energy, even in that. All that wasted gas flare that is damaging the environment. How about we use it and push some turbines, give some local power, light up streets, hospitals in the area? Just saying. I know it's cheaper, and I know that Nigeria has no regulation, and I know impunity reigns supreme, but at some point we need to take the bull by the horn and handle this, and stop having people live with health issues, fear, and environmental degradation. But we'll move to Imo, where Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State says his administration has reduced the state's debt profile from 126 billion naira to 97 billion naira, representing 23% reduction. Governor Uzodinma said this during a State of the State address presented at the House of Assembly yesterday, where he also stated that the reduction was a clear sign of his administration's prudent financial management. He added that his administration had pursued reforms that not only increased the state's revenue, but also attracted investment and enhanced transparency, further stated that his administration devised a modern digital revenue system to transform revenue collection and monitor revenue across all ministries, departments, and agencies. The governor then said that the step had drastically reduced leakages and manual bottlenecks, leading to an increase in the state's monthly internally generated revenue from an average of 1.8 billion to nearly 4 billion naira. Good one from Imo State. I mean, it's good that they're blocking leakages, it's good they're increasing revenue, but like I always say, at what cost and for what purpose? It's one thing to drive revenue. We talked about that yesterday, how, Nigeria Ports Authority and Federal Aviation Agency of Nigeria want to start increasing their revenue at our ports of entry, forgetting that to bear the final cost of all their hikes that they want to do to raise that revenue. And of course, we know when this money is there, transparency, who is using it, These are the things that make Nigerians worry when we hear about this sometimes thoughtless and ruthless revenue drives. But with regards to clogging or rather closing opening bottlenecks and plugging leakages, all credit to Imo State on that one. And finally, from our regional news, staying in Imo with this very, very interesting story. And we hear that the Nigerian Customs Service Federal Operations Unit Zone C in Owerri has intercepted a 40-foot container containing dry donkey skin billed for export in Owerri, Imo State. This was disclosed yesterday in a statement by the service, in which they also explained that the prohibited dry salted donkey skin was unraveled by the eagle-eyed officers following a comprehensive examination of the container. Dry donkey skin is a product listed under the export prohibition list by the federal government due to its implications on biodiversity, environmental balance, and the illegal trade in endangered species. The total items were packed in 10 pieces per sack, with 9 pieces per sack, totaling 322 pieces with an average weight of 4.5 kilograms, giving a total weight of 13.599 kilograms, with the global price of dry salted donkey skin standing at $750 with a unit price of $166.6 per kilogram. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll be taking Sports Business Part 2, and we'll be talking about football developments in the Southeast regions with Afia Sports Desk Head CCA Mechebe. The Eastern Business Reports return shortly.
With United Nigeria Airlines, every destination tells a story of unity and strength in the skies. Enjoy a curated selection of meals and beverages, seamless entertainment options, and personalized service designed to make every journey memorable. Planning your next trip has never been easier with our user-friendly mobile app, You can book flights, manage your itinerary, and even check in.
Report on the Afia Business Morning. I'm Nnamdi Obanya, and today we'll be joined by Afia Sports Desk Head, CCMH Abia. We'll be talking about sports business and doing part 2 from yesterday, and we'll be talking about football development in the Southeast and South-South regions. But first, a special commodity report from New Haven Market in Enugu State with a spotlight on the fluctuating prices of eggs, beef, and fish. Now, proteins are essential for body growth and repair. In light of this, Afia TV visited the New Haven Market in Enugu to check the current prices of key protein sources. In this report by Afia TV's Oluwatomi Olatayo, we hear from various poultry and beef sellers. Take a look.
On today's commodity report, the spotlight is on bodybuilding foods, also known as proteins. Proteins are made up of amino acids that help in the growth and repair of body tissues. Afia TV visited New Haven Market to carry out a price survey on protein-rich foods such as eggs, fish, and meat, and to find out whether their prices are risen or dropped.
An egg is 200 naira.
Okay, what about half a crate?
Half a crate, you can get at 2,900, then 3,000.
Alright, what about the full crate?
5,800, 6,000. It's actually decreased because it was at 6,200 last month, but now it's at 6,508. Even at some point 577. It all depends on the sizes. For this one now, this is 1,700. This is 2,000. This is 2,600. This is 1,000. So it all depends on the size. I can't say for it's there. Like it doesn't move like that. Always just there.
Per one is 200. Some are selling 250.
What will half a crate?
3,000.
What about a crate?
6,000 naira. You can sell 5,800. depending.
Last month, I think increased or decreased?
Well, I would say the thing is decreasing because formally when we were February, we are buying 6,300 per crate. But now a crate is 5,500, depending on your customer. But if your customer has a farm, so you can say maybe 5,000. But if you don't have farm, if you go and buy and you buy from him, it's 5,500. So we just use 5,000. The fish are in sizes. Unlike this one, I need 151. has increased. We bought this big one, the biggest one, we used to buy the carton around 700, and then the medium one is 600 and the other one is 300, depending the price.
Meat sellers also reviewed fluctuation in prices.
Half kg is 350. 1 kg is 7,000. It go up. Well, it's still going up because things go. Last month, the price last month is not the price we are buying. We don't know the hardship. We don't know the way to the place they are carrying the goods to go. Whether they are transporting the goods to outside Nigeria. Nobody knows. Goat butchers don't know what is the major problem, between goat meat as of now. That's why the price increase. But we're still selling the price in old kg in old price. Till we know whether it will come down or it will stay going up before we increasing the per kg.
It's cow meat. Half a kg, we said before, we said 3.5. But it's now 3.8, 4,000 because the thing is so expensive. 1 kilo, 8,000.
Before was how much?
7,000.
Why is it expensive? Have you imported?
The cow is so costly now. Cow we usually buy 1.3, we buy 2 million, 2.2, 2.3. The cost is too much because the problem is from north.
Tayo reporting for RTV.
Thank you for me. Go down. Put me pepper soup price will not go up. However, we do have to worry about the ones that are going up. If there's something that people are holding the price now, it means that they might go up, and we not. We hope that we can always have food within the reach of the man, because food is basic for survival, and nobody should have to struggle to put food on the table. We'll go on another break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Afia Sports Desk Head, CCMHB, and we'll be talking sports business. We'll be in our part 2 today about football development in the Southeast and South-South regions. The Eastern Business Report returns shortly.
the sum of 1 trillion naira to explore the mining sector, thereby diversifying the economy and harnessing the economic advantage of solid minerals in the country. Enugu State Governor, while receiving the Senate Committee on Solid Minerals, said that as the review on the Mining Act is ongoing, there should be more inclusivity for subnational in the exploration of solid minerals.
Beyond the coal, Enugu is equally blessed with diverse range of solid minerals, and it extends to alum, limestone, we have lead, zinc, we have quite a huge number of mineral resources here that are not fully exploited, because a lot of these assets are lying dormant or largely left in the hands of illegal miners, and that must end. And with the work your committee is doing, it is my hope that we can bring that to an end and be able to explore the full potentials that the solid mineral sector holds for our economy. Part of the major challenge in even exploring fully the mining sector or the solid mineral sector is the lack of data. And then when you have them, they are either obsolete or not current. And even when they are current, they are not enough for one to make investment decision with it.
The Chairman Senate Committee on Solid Minerals and team on oversight for ensuring Ebonyi and Enugu State said the mining sector is full of great potentials, and as part of the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there is need to diversify the economy.
It has been well established that solid minerals present huge opportunities for investment, present huge opportunities for diversification. We can no longer depend solely on oil. We must look beyond oil. For this year's budgets, we have an appropriation of 1 trillion. And this is a marked improvement upon the past. The time has come for Nigeria to look deeply at solid minerals, diversify the flanks of the economy, ramp up the levels of collaboration. This is one sector that will be well driven through collaboration. And we're passing on the message, well, we have gaps which must be filled so that at the end of the day, we have had clear signposts that will help to diversify the economy of this country. That's why we are here. We've gone to other parts of this country, we've gone to other states. Today we are in Enugu. And we recall that Enugu is very historical about mining. We recall with nostalgia the coal mining days. Enugu was known, it's still known as the coal city. And this is quite historical. So we want to reenact the good old days. We want to explore the full opportunities that abound in solid minerals. That explains why we are here.
So ideally, solid minerals are supposed to be the mainstay of our economy as a nation. Now, that is why the Senate Committee on Solid Minerals is paying deep attention in this sector. That is why we are moving from state to state to crossbreed ideas with the relevant stakeholders in this sector, all geared towards how best we can harness these nature's blessings to Nigeria. And I must tell you, that is the next alternative way of diversifying our economy. I, as a person, has a bill to my credit, all geared towards the best way to enhance this sector for economic prosperity. So recently, in the course of my research, I discovered that what happens in Nigeria and almost all over Africa is scattering our solid minerals from pit to pot without adding value to our economy, without undergoing any form of processing here in Nigeria. Because if we must insist that all the solid minerals generated here in Nigeria must be processed here in Nigeria, at least to some extent. By so doing, we'll add value to our economy, we'll create jobs, and we'll prosper as a nation. The bill has scaled second reading, have scaled a committee stage. We are waiting for the accent of Mr. President. So it's a welcome development, and I want to use this opportunity to call all stakeholders in this sector that it is time we pay attention to solid minerals because this is an alternative to our economic survival.
The synergy between the federal government and subnational in exploring the mining sector is geared toward reducing dependency on the oil sector, boosting GDP, and increasing foreign exchange earnings, amongst other benefits. In Enugu, Chidinma Mado for Afia TV.
The show is still the Eastern Business Report on the Afia Business Morning. I'm Nnamdi Obanya. Yesterday we talked about managing sports, and today we are continuing the conversation but talking about the football in the South East and South South. Now, these regions have a rich history with national and champion Rangers and iconic clubs like Benin, which was formerly Insurance, Heartland in its former incarnation as in Wanyanwu National. There is still Calabar Rovers, Gabros International, and more recently we've had Rivers United, Warriors, Aqua United, and so many more. The region has also put of Nigeria's late legend Nsukka and Stephen Keshi, and more recently Alex Iwobi, Victor Osimhen, Wilfred Ndidi. And with this rich pedigree, why do we not have infrastructure or vibrant regional footballing industry? Why are these two regions not overtly dominating national and continental football? And to help us answer is Afia Business Head and Abia. I'll be talking about the business in the region. Good morning, Sisi.
Good morning.
let me start from here. It almost seems as if you can take a man's squad to a major tournament of only players from Southeast and South-South. They have been dominant at the level, and if people mention stationary store shootings, if I'm correct, nationally on the continent, are probably successful clubs kind of had their domestic run, but they have continental to back it. Why is it that this region does the richest, most stable clubs with the best stadia?
Well, thanks for having me. It's really funny and interesting for we're having a sense in terms of discussions. This because of the rot that we're seeing in sports generally, and the Southeast in particular, the southern region actually, but the Southeast, major focus on the Southeast because that's where we are. There are many factors that are involved here. You know, while you were just talking about that, something was coming to mind about the full cycle, as it were, of sports, of an approach towards sports. There was a time, far back, many years ago, when sports was not seen as profitable. It was just leisure. People loved it. That was when we were growing up, people, young boys and even young girls who at that stage will be involved in sports for leisure, and then the parents will scold them and say, do something useful with your life, this and that, and just for the love of the game, like what's Pele, the late Edson Arantes do Nascimento will call it Jogo Bonita, the beautiful game. So because of the beauty of the game, just isolating football now, because of the beauty of the game, people fell in love with that and just played football, not even knowing that there was something to be gained from it economically. But as still on that cycle, eventually people started seeing the viability of the sports sector, the profitability, how endorsement and marketing rights and all these different things will come in. Clubs started becoming more robust economically, and then we were making signings. People were coming from different parts of the world just to identify with what was building up a very large fan base. And you can see, like you look at many of the clubs in world football, their fan base has increased astronomically over the years. And that just shows you how much potential is in sports. So then people started making money. Was now moving from sports for the love of sports to a major cash cow, so to speak. But now there seems to be a decline because of that same thing we've been talking about for a while, priorities or lack thereof. There are many factors that are responsible for the decline in sports in the Southeast, in the southern region, particularly the Southeast, and why it doesn't seem to be profitable. Because when you talk about the economy of sports, there is massive money, huge potential there, but the potential is only available to those who have eyes to see. Many are blinded to the true nature or the true wealth that is in sports. That's why, like you're looking at the Southeast, not too long ago, the National Sports Festival ended. It's no coincidence. We saw the performance of the Southeastern states. Not one single Southeastern state made it to the top 10.
But ironically, the powerhouses of National Sports Festivals are the South states.
Yes.
But they too equally have this football rot, despite they also producing great players.
Yeah.
We see in particular Delta State, which seems to be a festival powerhouse.
Yes.
Which also gave us Stephen Keshi, Sunday Olise, JG Okocha. And then you're seeing that, where's Warri Wolves?
just trying to get back the Super 8. No.
Bring me to my next question. If we look at a lot of teams, in Southeast, when you talk of private ownership, back in the day, Chief Manuel Iwaya National, Gabros. Yeah, and if Iwaya did, till he passed away recently, if we're to be fair, did keep that club running as great person.
Yes.
Investing heavily in it. But then we look at the fact that a lot of the clubs are government owned. we look at the fact that the Southwest is moving to more. We're seeing Lekki United, Lagos. A lot of private clubs are creeping in the Southwest. We've seen Shooting Stars, the Back to Shooting Stars board, and the government. Government. So, two arguments here: is government good or government bad? Or private ownership. We look at Remo Stars. Government has quite a proper footballing institution. Yes. It helps that he has another club in Portugal. You know, it helps that Remo Stars is not his primary source of income, but he has invested so much. They've been a top 3, top 5 side for a while, and they very dominantly, almost I dare say, to last season. And now we are seeing them already going to take on the continent. That's the argument for private ownership. The argument for public ownership is we saw Rangers the season before. Peter Mbah's government came in, gave Amobi a mandate, gave him what he needed. They allowed them to go private, do their branding. Afri Invest came on board. Everything was, properly branded, properly done. I was there for the unveiling of the jerseys and everything. And, I just started smiling because as a member of Swan, going back, I remember you would see the unveiling of a new player at a club. And the club GM will be wearing a Chelsea jersey. And the coach will be wearing maybe a Galatasaray jersey that a Super Eagle gave him. At the unveiling of a player of the club, they are the GM and the coach. So there was no sense of branding. It was madness. And, but this wouldn't care because we're government appointees. Yes. But then we saw what Rangers did, government owned. We saw the 2 years of continental dominance at Enyimba Football Club when Ojus Okalo invested. Yes. So we've seen that government ownership is not necessarily a problem. It's just unstable because it depends on the government's attitude towards the club. So my question now is, what do you think is the best way for us to spur, business of football regionally very quickly? Do we go government or do we go private?
Funny enough, that is a very, very difficult question to answer because it's not as straightforward as it sounds. Because the argument for government involvement, I don't want to use the word interference because basically there's an interference, for those who are not aware, an interference and an intervention are two different things. They're both interruptions, but one is a positive interruption, that's intervention to make things better, to improve them, while an interference is a negative interruption to make things worse than they already are. And the government, you look at the pros and the cons of government involvement and then private-owned businesses. Of course, a private-owned business is run with a capitalist mindset. Mostly. That's why you see Sean Eme, for instance, he is a capitalist, a pure capitalist. He's done a fantastic job with Remo Stars. He's building a brand, in fact, an empire. They say an empire. In fact, the feeder club, Future Stars, has become a team in the NLO, and it's coming up. Yes, so you're looking at Future Stars in the NLO, you're looking at Beyond Limits in the NNL. So there's just a systematic plan for dominance. And still, when you talk about that issue of dominance, I think that's one of the key differences between sports run in the southeast and sports run. Sorry, I meant Beyond Limits, not Future Stars. Sorry. Okay, so but Beyond Limits, that's in the NNL. NNL, yes. They were in the NNL before. They are now. They moved to NNL. They've been promoted. Yes. And they were Remo Academy. Yes. Because I know when they started. Yes. In fact, funny story. Their coach Olumide actually came from my academy. Oh, yeah. So I actually know. Yeah. Where they started, and seeing the development is ridiculous in such a short time. It's ridiculous but intentional because like I always say, Rome was not built in a day, but it was built daily. So once you have a plan and then you do that every single day, every effort is geared towards the end game. And that's what these guys are doing. That's what some of these privately owned sites are doing. Yeah. But it's down to pros and cons. The privately owned sites have their own pros, and that's the vision. They're vision oriented, they push and they want to get things done. But the cons, sometimes the cons outweigh the pros, which is why we've seen in the MPFL, for instance, no privately owned side had won the MPFL since Julius Berger in 2000, 25 long years before the Remo Stars came up and did that. Why? Because normally it's quite unfortunate that in this part of the world, the powers that be, if I may use that term, the powers that be make the environment not conducive at all.
Let's go and a spade. The state government pay referees. We saw match fixing. Look, unabated match fixing.
Yes.
You know, and credit to Super Sport when they came and they were showing the matches on TV. We started seeing things change. You know, the Caterpillar's dominance ended.
Because of visibility. All eyes on them.
You know, and I will call out people.
Yes.
We saw what happened at Sunshine Stars in Akure. They would use a mighty refuse truck to block the Obi van from coming in. You know, I remember forgetting Zagbero saying we have not been winning matches since you were showing us on TV. You know, but we saw what happened, and then again, due to sports marketing and government greed, we don't have that visibility of the NPFL again. Yes. Do you think that maybe it's time, maybe we start having regional tournaments?
Regional tournaments, that's a good way to go about it. That's a good way to start. You know, when we have regional tournaments, because one of the major reasons for regional tournaments is to showcase the wealth and abilities of each region. Let each region develop at its own pace. If that region, let's say for instance the southern region, southwest, south-south, southeast, we then look at that almost like the structure in the in the NNL, like the Super 8. You have the Conference A, Conference B, Conference C, Conference D. You're picking up the best from the southern region and then the best from the northern region that get promoted for not just for federal character but for fairness and equity. But it will be fantastic to see that happen. But still down to this issue of the government, the power brokers, the shareholders, everybody that's involved in what's happening behind the scenes. Back there, up there in the north, for instance, it's seen these football clubs. You mentioned some of them, like Canopilla, say Nsukka, they've been a powerhouse in the north for so long. You're looking at different sides, El Academy Warriors,
El Academy Warriors.
Yes. These are sides that are used as a platform to, portray dominance, power play, more or less. Yes, we have power. We want to show you that we have power across board, and our sports sector should be part of that. It's quite unfortunate, that can't be fully translated in other parts of sports, other sports. That's why you see dismal performances from the north. No disrespect to the north, but dismal performance from the north in like National Sports Festival we're talking about. But because you talk about naturally talented athletes, most of them come from the southern region
but you look at the north. The north has given us its share of great footballers. It's all, I mean, Ahmed Musa comes to mind quickly. We have Mr. Garbala. We have Rabiu Ali, probably he was left figure to play in the MPF. It's not so hard, but the issue has in that, and even I went to Nigeria, and you always see that Nigeria. So where are the sports festivals? Where are our northern clubs on the tournament? At the tournaments, El Academy Warriors used to be a very fearsome team. Canopillars had their reign of dominance. We talked about. There's Plateau United. We had Jutes back in the days. Where is BCC Lions of the middle belt? Where and BCC then I guess was because private owned.
Yes.
But I want to bring up a little conspiracy theory. Not really conspiracy, but a question. I always feel that there were 3 men who killed Nigerian football, and they killed it with goodwill, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I believe that Leventis United, Masters, Chief Manuel Wayawu, MQ Abiola, if they had treated their football clubs the way they treated their businesses, not as philanthropic gestures, but as actual businesses, and appointed CEOs the way they had for their businesses. If they had sat down and made themselves the first board of the Nigerian Professional League, I think our football will be superior to South Africa's own by now, our local league. I think what happened was it was philanthropy, it was goodwill, it was keeping people happy. Football has more been social than economic in Nigeria. But that's my own theory. I think that's where we lost it.
Yes, and I think I agree with you totally, because, like, for instance, you talk about business development. You have many businessmen who are philanthropists. They are very altruistic, and they run NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Now, your NGO is not your business. Your NGO is funded by your business. So if your football club, a football outfit, sporting outfit generally, is seen like an NGO, like a philanthropic platform, it will die off like an NGO if it's not being funded, if it's not internally, if there's yes, exactly. There's no internal generation of funds that sustains it, that's self-sustainable. That's the term I wanted to use. Yeah. So I will agree, yes, they played a part to do that. They did it with good intentions. They didn't understand the dynamism of sports. I would say, in fairness to them, that even though they were businessmen, because not all businessmen know everything, they probably didn't see how much of a gold mine the sporting sector is. And if they had, we'll be having a different conversation right now. But at the end of the day, it's still down to who's at the helm and who helps matters, because the potential is so vast. Look at the National Sports Festival we talked about, and then look at the state of things in the Southeast. I'm just centering on the Southeast for now. Ebonyi State doesn't have any footballing team, any football team in the MPFL. There is no stadium that I know of in Ebonyi State that meets the standard for that. And then you could even be outside of football in the National Sports Festival. Ebonyi State ranked 28th. Now Enugu didn't rank too much higher, which is an indictment, and really it's a good thing that the LOC has been appointed now. They inaugurated the 10-man LOC with Mary Onyia in there, Davis Nowumi, Barrister Lloyd Ekweremadu, and then many others who are there. Big, solid brains who at least try and fix this rot in their own way, as long as they're given the room. And I have confidence in His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Enugu State, Dr.
I mean, when I see all these 10-man committees, 2-man committees, I can tell you Lagos and Delta's secrets very easily.
Yes, please spell it out.
Keep people consistently on a payroll with a stipend, so that whatever they are doing, as long as they have where they are staying, what they are eating, money to spend, sustain, they have training equipment, they have training facilities, they will spend 80% of their time training, because you put them in a semi-professional state constantly. But when people have their jobs and train once a week, and you want them to come to a festival, even those that are committed to athletics, that they have a job, they train, go to work, come back, but they don't even have food to eat.
You're just leading me to the last point I wanted to raise.
The consistency, that consistency.
Yes.
Lagos, Delta, Rivers, they've done it. Delta and Lagos in particular.
Yes.
Edo is another state that, for some sports, has kept that. And let's give credit. We knock where we knock, but let's give credit where credit is due.
Yes.
The current DG of the National Institute for Sports, Philip Shuaibu, as Deputy Governor of Edo State, was very, very important in the structure of Edo State sports.
True.
So maybe I hope as is there at NIS, when we come for coaching badges, they won't tell us that they can't see us because they're looking for who wants to rent hall. I mean, true story. So do we need all this 10-man committee? Can't we just be consistent?
No, I think the part of yes, we should be consistent. That's all part of that. Now we should be consistent, and we'll be consistent if it's a priority. It's down to that issue of priorities, and then creating an enabling environment and providing the resources. In fact, if you must use a carrot and stick approach, because incentivizing, your performance, incentivizing sports generally, bringing massive remunerations for these players will motivate them. Many of these players, many of these athletes do not have motivation. They see that they are maybe just a mere option. And if you treat me, I'm just echoing the sentence. You're looking at Davis Nowumi, you're looking at Miri Onyali or Mabemi, you're looking at Barrister Lloyd Ekweremadu, who also has some visions concerning sport development. I've seen that, I've met him, we've talked, and we've seen what he brings to the table. And then, I've forgotten her name, Stella, it's her son, the badminton lady who performed who represented Nigeria in badminton. I had the pleasure of interviewing her I think a couple of years ago. So you're looking at people who understand the problem and who know how to solve the problem. And if they're given the resources, then they will make a solid environment that will carry everybody along and then make people know, hey, there is so much to gain from sports.
Let me ask one final question because we're out of time.
Okay.
Should we be bringing sports people to solve sports problems, or should we be bringing business people? Is our problem sporting or business problems?
A combination of both.
Particularly for football in Nigeria.
It's a combination of both, and I still firmly insist on that. A business person who understands sports, or a sports person who is into business. Somebody who, because naturally business has different templates. There are basic rules that are involved in running business, but there are peculiarities depending on the kind of business you're running. Sports business requires sports acumen. So I need to have sports people who are also into business, and I think that's the way forward.
Well, that's a good way to leave it. That is the way forward, and that's all we can take. But thank you so much for being here. Of course, you can catch him every morning, 7:30 on Afia 993 FM if you're in Enugu. If you're not, bumper package, Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. Afia Weekend Sports Show. It's, well, I was going to call it the Afia Sports Show, hashtag ASS. You can catch them at 10:30 every Saturday morning. You don't want to miss that, trust me. GSTV 254, GoTV 17, Free TV 748. But the Eastern Business Report, Afia Business Morning, well, not fully done yet. Eastern Business is done. Afia Business Morning is not, because Ifunanya Ndule Market Pekin is ready to walk you into the market, how market comes up right now. So stay tuned to 254 on DSTV, 17 on GoTV, and of course 748 on Free TV. Till I see you at 10 a.m. tomorrow for another edition of the Afia Business Morning, I'm Nnamdi Obanya saying have a very profitable business day.